Hey YouTube, how's it going? Welcome to Asian Filmist. My name is Ray and I love movies. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is the 2016 CG animated film Gantz. And it's an adaptation of a comic originally created by Oku Hiroya. Now Gantz, the original word Gantz, for me it's kind of nostalgic. I read the original manga, I watched the original TV anime series, and I also watched the two live action adaptations. So needless to say, I was really looking forward to Gantz when they initially made the announcement. Now before we talk about the story of Gantz, let's talk a little bit about the premise of Gantz, because Gantz does not start at the beginning of the story. And so the basic premise of Gantz, basically some folks die through some tragic means, whether it's murder, an accident, or a suicide, but instead of staying dead, they find themselves strangely transported to this room in Tokyo with the only thing in the room is this giant ball, and the ball's name is Gantz. And what does Gantz do? It gives these guys special suits that enhance their physical abilities and special weapons, and tasks them to eliminate aliens. And these aliens aren't your friendly neighborhood ETs. They're very dangerous and they're out for blood. And whenever one of these hunters kills off an alien, they can get points. And what the hunters can do with these points, once they reach 100 points, they can do one of three things. They can either revive someone from the dead, they can get a new weapon so that way they can continue hunting for Gantz, or they can select to be freed from Gantz and continue to relive their original life. And like I said before, Gantz, it does not start at the beginning. So if you want to know the beginning of the story, either read the manga, watch the TV anime, or the movies. Because actually Gantz adapts the Osaka Arc, which I'm pretty sure is the O in Gantz, which takes place way after the events of the stories that are covered in the TV anime and movies. And I don't know about you guys, but Gantz, it brought back all sorts of nostalgia for me. Now the story of Gantz, it was pretty messed up from the beginning, but I felt in the comics when the Osaka Arc happened, things really started to get messed up, and that people were dying, bodies were flying left and right, more so than usual. Because if you didn't know, Gantz is a pretty violent story, and there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of pervertedness, there's a lot of blood and heads flying. It's really merciless and it's fantastic. And so the premise of Gantz, you have the hunters, the focus of the story, and they're originally based in Tokyo, but for some reason Gantz transports them to Osaka, where the whole city seems to be in flames because of all these demonic aliens. And so the Tokyo team must team up with the Osaka team and work together to take out this menace before the whole city gets destroyed. So that's the basic story of Gantz. Now let's dive into the things I enjoyed about the story. One of the first good things I will say about Gantz is the way it adapts a story arc that happens, not even in the beginning of the original source material, but happens kind of part way through. And it adapts it so that way the movie itself is a standalone experience. Now this is one of those things that may create a dividing opinion amongst the anime fans, in that there were a lot of changes and sacrifices, a lot of things that were cut out from the original source material in order to make this movie work as a standalone experience. And in my opinion, they made it work out, and then people who have never seen the original anime or read the original manga can come into Gantz and have an experience as fresh as the person sitting right next to them who has enjoyed the anime themselves. But if you're dying to know about the changes that were made in Gantz, I don't want to get into too gritty detail, otherwise folks will be starting to accuse me of giving spoilers, but let's just say that circumstances surrounding Kurono's absence in this mission and Kato's participation are changed a lot. And because this is a standalone experience with no ties whatsoever to the original anime, manga, or movie, to have all the characters that were active before and during the Osaka Arc would be kind of unfair to new viewers. So, needless to say, the characters that were cut out included Kaze, there is no Sakata or Sakurai, there are no vampires, and I'm sorry, no panda. In the original story, the Tokyo team had a lot of members, a whole variety of different characters, but in Gantz, the Tokyo team was cut down to 4 members. We have Kato, we have Nishi, we have Suzuki, and we have Reika. So even though a lot of the cool characters and a lot of the cool concepts were cut out from the original story, to have them introduced in the standalone experience would be, like I said, very unfair. And so because they decided to cut all that away, way, it made the story, kind of enjoyable and kind of fresh because, there was no obligation to watch any of the old anime or read any of the old stories or even to even catch up because it kind of explained the rules of Gantz as the story went along. And even though those cool extra characters were cut out, the core story and the core events that happened in the source material are preserved perfectly. Of course changed, but hey, we still get a titty monster. Another thing I thought that was exceptional about Gantz O was the CG. Now, earlier this year, we saw movies like Final Fantasy Kingsglaive, and that had excellent CG. Gantz O CG, it wasn't perfect, but it was fantastic. And the way the CG was used to portray the action sequences, which was also fantastic, it was great. But there are times when the CG felt kind of shoddy, and probably the biggest thing I had with the CG was that sometimes the facial expressions of the characters, they were kept kind of static, meaning like they had one basic expression for most of the time. One thing I really liked about, CG movies nowadays is that it can be used to really capture expressions really clearly, but Gantz O, it didn't really show a variety of expressions for its characters. But facial expressions aside, I'd say that the majority of the time the CG was on point and it really did a good job. The mocap was really good and the voice acting, as expected from an anime. And just so that it can be clear that this movie has no connection whatsoever in story-wise to the original anime, all the voice actors in Gantz O are completely different. And above all else, the one thing I love about Gantz O is the way they animated all the monsters and all the aliens and even all the detail put into their design. But admittedly, it's been several years since I read the Osaka Arc in the comics, but seeing them come to life, it really brought back a whole heaps of nostalgia and made me remember, the bull demon, the titty monster. But everything blended well together, the CG, the mocap, the voice acting, the monster design, the animation, to really bring the story of Gantz to life much better than it has ever been portrayed before. And the action was pretty much non-stop from beginning to end. But as enjoyable as an experience I had with this movie, it is not without flaws. So let's talk about the things I thought were lacking about Gantz O. One of the things I'd point out is, as I mentioned in the things I enjoyed about this movie, the action was pretty much non-stop from beginning to end. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. Good is that it was fun and amazing to watch, but the negative side is that it left little to no room for character development. And because it didn't have those moments to really stop and pause, the movie just felt like one giant non-stop 2-hour-long adrenaline rush. And because the movie didn't have those moments to stop and pause, there were a lot of lost opportunities to really crescendo to climactic moments. But it's kind of ironic and all, a movie that's non-stop action beginning to end, because it took no time to pause and or even really develop its characters, in the end it felt really monotone. But actually, admittedly, there were times when the story tried to squeeze in character growth and in development in the relationships between Kato and the other people. But a lot of those relationships felt very rushed, and in the end, you don't really buy into it. And one thing I felt that was missing from Gantz O, as an adaptation, was that a lot of the deep themes that I felt were in the original story didn't really cross over much, because like I said before, this is an adaptation of a story arc that happens kind of midway through. In the original story, a lot of messed up things happen to people who don't really deserve it. And in the film, you don't really get that kind of feeling of dread. The most you feel in Gantz O when it comes to dread, it's like, oh damn, there's a giant monster chasing me, run away or kill it. So the bottom line is, with Gantz O, it's mostly flash with very little substance. But it does a good job of adapting a story arc that happens midway through the original story. So that way fans, people who have never read the original manga or watched any of the original movies or anime can have a good time with it. It's very accessible to non-fans is what I'm trying to say. And keeping in mind that the Osaka Arc has never been adapted before, seeing it come to life, fans of the original manga will be delighted to see everything kind of portrayed as true as it could be. But at the same time, I know you guys will miss all the extra characters other than Kato, Reika, Suzuki, and Nishi. I definitely recommend this film for fans of the original manga, and even to filmgoers who just want a nice action, thriller, horror movie to munch popcorn to. But those are my thoughts on Gantz O. What did you guys think? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment below, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to Asian Filmist for more reviews and discussions of Asian films. You can even chat with us on Facebook and Twitter, and if you subscribe to our email newsletter, you can receive a free copy of our ebook, The 108 Asian Films for New Fans to Watch. Once again, my name is Ray. You can find me on Twitter at RayMaru555. And yeah, that's about it. Alright everyone, I gotta watch another movie. I'll be back soon, yeah? Promise.